Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman show. It's been a little while since I've put an interview up, but it's been worth the wait. I want to introduce you to one of the most beautiful, incredible souls I think I've met to date, Janet Piedilato. I am so honored to have you with me today, speaking to us. We're going to be speaking about, well, I'm going to let you introduce yourself in a minute, but I know that we're going to be speaking about all manner of topics and the dreamscape being one of them. But for our viewers, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and where it
Oh,
started?
okay. Well, my journey did with my arrival bring in an enthusiasm to learn about life and so much about life. So my background kind of reads like a little bit of an encyclopedia. I've seemed to have been many places. I started out wanting to sing opera, write novels, and spend a life really with someone who probably was a poet, a very romantic beginning, and ended up in a very fine finishing school where one of the nuns talked about DNA and RNA. And it was as though someone hit me on the head and said, yes, this is what your life is going to be about, finding memory. Who are you and what are you about? And that led me to walk up to that science teacher at the end of the class, all of 14 years old. And I said to her, Sister, I know what I'm going to do with my life. Now, everyone knew I was the one who sang in all of the concerts, and this is what I was going to do with my life. I suddenly was going to be a biology major, and I was going to go find memory. To that end, I got my first doctorate from NYU under Fleur Strand. She was a neurobiologist, and I didn't find memory in the seat of DNA. But I went on to get a second doctorate in transpersonal psychology, where I am looking for memory, and it is the memory of who we are, why we've been incarnated, and where we would go. And it's interesting because as a small child, I'll never forget looking at an image of myself that my mother said. My mother was an artist and a designer, and it was a baby picture of me. And I was about 4 looking at this fat baby. I was 10 pounds when I was born, thinking, that was me, and I wasn't really impressed. And then I looked at my mother and I realized that at any time of my life, if someone was going to ask me, like you did today, Janet Piedilato, who are you? Was going to be a different answer depending upon where I was, if I was in school, if I was a professor of anatomy and biology, which I was. Did I get a culinary degree? Yes, I was doing that. I was a mother, I was a wife, I was a daughter, I was a sister. Who am I beyond that? And so the little 4-year-old child who asked the question decided I was only visiting on this planet and that these wonderful parents were just kind of surrogates. And it is a message for each and every one of us. We really exist before the egg and sperm joins. And who are we? Why are we here? What was our pre-birth contract? That's the memory. That's putting together the pieces of who we are. And that's who I am. I mean, on my gravestone, which is already in the ground, it has my name and it has dreamer because I was born as a dreamer and
Hang
I,
on, hang on. Can we just back up a minute?
yes,
Your gravestone is already in the ground.
yes, it's already in the ground. It's been in the ground now um, 15 years maybe. And it comes to me that in the abbeys, in the places where there are sacred hermits, they do have their gravestone in the ground to remind them that the body is only a vessel for a short transient piece of time. And so to that end, my gravestone I had put in the ground so that I look at it. I have on my property, I live on a farm, I have a garden of remembrance. It's an encircled temenos with a labyrinth in the center that everyone walks to go to the center of who they are, and all around benches in honor of all being on the planet, whether they be plant, animal, mineral, everyone is remembered. And in that space is my gravestone already that just says, here lies Janet, dreamer, because Dreamer came with me, Dreamer will go with me. This body won't. And I mean, every day I look at it and say, who is that? It changes through time. And if we all understand that, we don't hang on to everything so tenaciously, especially in times like we've just gone through, where we're worried, we've lost this, someone's passed away, something's happened. We've come to manifest and to do service. And each experience we have means something, but we don't hang on to it. That little girl, yes, I'm a daughter, but my mother and father are gone. I was a wife, the husband is gone. I was a mother, both children predeceased me. So as I walk through life, who am I? I'm the dreamer that came to manifest something and to give the word. That day at puberty, really, when that nun said memory, DNA, RNA, Watson and Crick, I didn't realize, yes, they were bringing me into spending years in medical research so that when I do my shamanic work, I know what the body is. I know how to go in. And then they said, but what is it we really need to remember? We need to remember who we are and why we're here, past all the transients. So it is, that's who I am, is a dreamer better than the long list of my all of my accomplishments and where I went and what degrees I got. I didn't really learn anything. There's more that I don't know than what I know. I look at it.
Curiouser and curiouser, isn't it? Like you just want to keep unfolding. I love your wisdom about death, and I think this is something we could really speak to at this time on our planet, right? Because there's such a portal open and so many people passing on. What would you say to people really struggling with all the death that's going on at the moment? With what you know.
Right. First of all, I mean, I've probably lost just about everybody that anyone could possibly lose. Lost a child that became ill at age 5, died at age 10 with leukemia. Lost a gorgeous son with aortic stenosis. Lost a husband who got up in the morning perfectly well and then 40 minutes later was gone. A mother, a father, brothers, confidants, great teachers, and friends that I've walked through life with. And I haven't really lost them.
Mm.
Their bodies have gone. They've gone home before me. And I know that their presence is there. And they have joined the ancestors. And those ancestors come from past, present, and future. And that's what most people don't understand. We are living right now in the waters of time. But we're going to pop out of that. And we're going to go where all of the ancestry is. So you haven't lost anyone. And believe me, I mean, I'm perfect example of it. Yes, their physical presence is not with me, but it focuses me on why I'm here and what messages maybe I have to bring, where my voice needs to be. And each and every one of us, even if our job is not the priest, the minister, the rabbi, or the great orator, wherever we are, we touch people. So even if it's in a grocery store and you make a smile and you say to somebody, be well, and you connect, we are all the same. Every one of us has that spark in us. And the waters of death, it's interesting because we look at the ancient mythology and they talk about the river Styx being Chiron has a ferry, and each one of us, as we die, we give a coin to Chiron to take us to the other side. And yet we think of that water as death.
Mm.
If we go back in the mythology, there's one myth that most people don't really know. They know of someone called Achilles. We have within the vernacular Achilles' heel. That's our weak point. And that's probably where most people stop with the myth. How did he get that weak part? And how was the rest of his body strong? His mother dipped him in the river Styx.
Mm.
The river Styx, the river of death, as far as we consider it, was really the river of life and the river of empowerment. And only where she held him, by his heel, was he weak. And it's as though each and every one of us, born of the physical, that's our Achilles heel, because our eyes look forward. They look upon what we see in the world. We hear, we see, we taste, we touch. And the enlightenment, the so-called enlightenment, makes us believe that's reality and nothing else is real. Well, I'll tell you right now, that's not true. Because the desk in front of me, the walls by me, will someday crumble.
Mm.
But that which comes through that river of death, which is the river of life, that's the real life. So I would tell each and every person that you've had the honor of walking with someone special. And it was you who said you would stay, you would remain, that they went home first. And you are going to join them. So death is not an end, it's a birth to be back to the origin where we began, we end. Our life is short, even if we live 100 years.
That's exactly what I said to a friend yesterday who's currently dealing with those very concepts. I see it as a birth. I know that it's a birth back home. And that, if you think about it as a big celebration awaiting you on the other side. I think that, well, though the people like you and I who can really perceive beyond the physical or as well as the physical into that, you and I know that our loved ones are always walking beside us and that we can access them through our hearts if we wish to. And I think that that's really comforting to know, really
And
beautiful.
they come, yeah, they come in dream. They come in that, in the altered state, yes.
Yeah. So Janet, how did you, I mean, you've obviously been a dreamer all your life,
Yes.
but when it came to developing your extrasensory abilities, shall we say, how did you embark on that development?
You see, it was always there, as you say, and I guess I was not ever a normal child. Most normal children went out to play in the street. They had a bicycle, they jumped rope or whatever. Well, I didn't. Yes, I sat and played classical music and I sang my opera, but on an afternoon, I would be often in my own bedroom with the door closed, getting into a closet. And I knew when I went into that closet, and it was a little toy closet, Alexandra. I mean, amazing. I would open
I
the door.
love the symbolism of that. You're in your spiritual closet.
I opened it. There were three games in that closet. I inherited from my three older brothers: Monopoly, Clue, and Sorry. That was fine. They were board games. I pulled them out. There was a great big magnet that one of my brothers always managed to have back and give to me over and again. So it was like the magnet drawing me to the closet. And there was a pipe in the back that was a hot water pipe. In the winter, I had to be very careful not to hit the hot water pipe because I could get burnt. But I would squeeze my little body into this closet. And my mother always knew that I was going. I was going somewhere. I was going to have a wonderful journey. I had no idea that this was anything that most normal people didn't do. When I became bigger, I slid under the bed because I couldn't fit into the closet. But somehow I knew I needed to go elsewhere in order to travel. And I went to the most wonderful places and saw magnificent things. And you will love the next part. And Mr. Menike, if you are alive right now, you're going to know the secret of how I knew a lot about ancient history. In my freshman year in college, I was a biology major, obviously. But I had to take some of the general liberal arts, and one of the classes was ancient history. It was world history. And my teacher, my hand was constantly up. I knew the answers because I had gone to these places and I had experienced it. He got to the point, he went on his honeymoon, and he gave me the notes for the 2 weeks he was going to be gone that I would take care of the class. And he had no idea where I got the information. And that information was the places that I visited during those journeys. Now, by the time I was in the college, obviously, my mind was working in science, and yet I knew I had extraordinary experiences. I'm 4 years old. My grandfather dies. I'm holding his hand. I go home, go up to my bedroom. He's sitting on the bed waiting for me. So I thought everyone saw their people after, in quotes, death was there. And in college, I was invited to be part of something that was very new, which was an honored seminar. The top student in each one of the classes, the French, the English, I was a pre-med student. We came together. We were allowed to pick whatever we wanted to study. I picked parapsychology because I had such amazing experiences. My mother was an amazing psychic. I wanted to understand it better. And to that end, I met Stan Krippner, who is still to this day, a weekly correspondent with me. He's traveled the entire life with me with dreams. He brought me to J.B. Rhine down in Duke University. They were adjacent to Duke. The first father of parapsychology. I met Ethel Johnson Myers. I was involved in parapsychology, meeting all the great names and doing all of the studying so that I might be very grounded. So if I look at it, I can say the universe wanted to make sure my feet were on the ground. I am a Virgo, that I would understand and I would not be gulled by falling into a false belief system, but that I would know and I would experience deep, deep connections, not only with the deceased, but with remote vision, where I would be in another country, I would be seeing things, and I'd know it was real. So my background really, they worked, and I'm saying they meaning spirit, worked on both levels, making sure I was grounded, had my degree in science, but had all of these amazing experiences. In fact, my husband used to say to me, I should get air miles for everything that I would see, because I would see and know. So it was partly inherited, but obviously I was very lucky with these wonderful mentors that I met along the way. I mean, Michael Harner being one of them, spending years in his special study group. So I'm very grateful for all of the teachers inside as well as outside, giving me grounding so that I'd understand what the dream reality was about. And that's my work. Whether it's the mystical dream tarot, which is completely different than most tarots,
Which I
or
love. Oh my gosh, I should have brought it in here actually to show people because it's just the most
uh,
stunning deck. Have you got a copy
okay,
there, honey?
there we
Oh, it's just
they are.
absolute magic. If anyone's watching and you haven't seen this tarot, get yourself a copy. Honestly, I mean,
Well, it's intuitive, and in fact, I'm going to begin a basic special class, and probably in segments, and it's going to be called "Let's Talk Intuitive Tarot." I have nothing against memorizing and learning and getting a grounding in some sort of the background of what another individual in another period of time looked and created a symbolic meaning that may resonate with an individual. But there are many of us for whom it's just natural to have, and you're probably one of them for sure. You have your own background, and I think that's very important to honor. There are different traditions, there are different cultures, and not everyone goes back to one that's already been set up. And as I said, I have nothing against it working magnificently for many people. But for those that it doesn't, let's waken the intuitive sense and begin your own. Someone called it, well, that's make believe. Well, it's all make
of
believe.
course it is.
It
Yeah,
doesn't, it doesn't exist in the physical reality, so to speak. We've taken, I mean, even if I was to hold my ankh, there was a people on the earth. They believed that this represented life. Well, that was an ancient Egyptian belief system, and that's fine. And you can learn that if you want. But how about drawing on the right side of the brain when everything that artist did, she said, turn things over and decide what you think it looks like. And now, doesn't this look like I'm carrying some sort of a sack, or perhaps it's some sort of a vessel that has a fluid in it? Why should I say that that's not right? Just because someone else has a belief. And that's what's important in dreams as well. Meaning and image can be very specific to a person.
I
And
love that you said that. I often, when I'm working, if I'm working with tarot, I work a lot with oracle cards just for myself, really. But I always find, and this is what I've done with my oracle deck as well, is that there's a hidden layer underneath all of the symbolism that you can only get to via your own intuition. And I often will take tarot cards and turn them myself and look at them from different angles, and I can find a sort of a way in, a portal in to what's really underneath everything. And you can do that with people as well, get underneath all the programming and just see to the truth of the matter, really just see right into the heart of it.
well, you've mentioned something that's really important in dream, and I do a lot of dream analysis. When the dream comes, you're getting the surface. You're getting a story that we call the manifest. That's rarely what the dream has to tell you. It's the latent, it's what's hidden. So with me, I mean, I started out with playing cards. I was a small child with the cards, and I would sit with them, and each card told me something. Well, playing cards, most people don't use to read as, a tarot. And I think it's interesting because, in fact, you use them as something that is manifest in front of you to go underneath, to see what story that they're telling. And that's important. That's the intuitive voice, that's the dream voice that the Enlightenment threw away and said, that's fiction, that's fantasy, that doesn't count. Oh, it's just a dream. Or like you say, it's just the manifest, the top layer that's not important. So yes, I think it's awakening who we are, and we're only going to do that if we get beneath everything else.
Yeah. And obviously, you've got such a powerful grounding in the shamanic
Yes.
teachings and practice as well, don't you? How did you start with all of that?
Well, that was getting into the closet, doing what's
Of
really called
course. Yeah.
shamanic journeying.
Yeah.
I went to a place that I was familiar with. In fact, even at night, I would climb out to the tree branch outside in my imagination. And most people will say, well, it's just imagination. And certainly as a biologist, I say, no. The imagination is a tool which allows us to form mental imagery. We wouldn't be able to get up in the morning if we didn't have that tool. We have to imagine ourselves rising and walking and doing things. And so it brings imagery. And at night, I used to just look at the tree. The tree would commune with me. And there was a huge branch on it. And I would sit on that branch in my imagination. And we would travel to the stars. And I would see things. My teachers, my shamanic teachers, Alexandra, from about age 4 and 5, are still my teachers. And when I was studying with Michael Honor, it was interesting. I was doing my second doctoral degree. And at that point, Stan Krippner said to me, you're doing it already. You don't need to go. And I said, no, I would like to meet him. I think he's an amazing individual. May I do a phenomenological study? May I go and see what I'm doing with shamanism and what Michael is teaching? I never had a teacher except an internal one. And I was very happy to hear Carl Jung, the great psychologist, psychiatrist, had Philemon because I thought something was wrong with me. I only had inner teachers. I didn't have someone external. And Michael noticed right at the beginning and spoke to me. And he said to me, look, come, sit, listen to anything I say, and go off and do your own. You're already connected. You're already doing it. And it's very much the work of an avatar, what you're doing. So just go and do it. I loved him. I adored him. I think he brought shamanism to the West and explained it in the core shamanism so that people could awaken the imagination. And so for me, yes, I went to see what he was doing, what it was like, what it meant. Um, but my inner teachers always remained my connection. And I was very lucky. They appeared very early. It was the lady who stood at the bottom of my bed, and she's been with me ever since.
Ever since. I love that.
Hmm.
Wow. Oh, Janet, you're so magical. I love and even I just got to say to our viewers, like even just speaking to her, you can probably feel the energy kind of percolating around us. Um, my guides are stepping in now and they're saying, ask her about her take on the Kundalini energy. Is
Ah,
that something you've
yes, yes, yes. Well, the snake is also a friend of mine. I'm very strange because I'm not outside a tremendous amount in my entire life. I've kind of been in the closet. But I have property that's filled with snakes. And most of the men and workers don't like the snakes. They're actually afraid of them. I speak to the snakes. And all of my snakes are Sophia, the great one of wisdom, because the snake, his beautiful coat comes off and he sheds that skin over and over and over. So when we talk about the Kundalini, that's what the Kundalini is within each and every one of us. It's that coiled snake, the divine feminine, that's waiting to awaken, that's waiting to give us the truth of who we are, what's important in our life, and where we need to go. And anything that happens to us, if that snake rises, and in fact, my first real connection with what the Kundalini rising felt like was through an individual who I was doing shamanic work for. and he committed suicide.
Mm.
And his words to his brother who was present, he took a gun to his head, but he said, please call Janet and let her come and do my funeral. And at the same time, Alexandra, I had a dream and I knew something was wrong. And I woke in the morning, and at the precise time he was shooting, I mentioned to my husband, I said, I need to call him. He was not in the same state. He was several states away from me. I said, I have not heard from him for a good month or two, which was very unusual. I said, I need to get him, but we needed to get out. And at the time, we didn't have cell phones.
Mm.
When I came home, there was a message that I was needed. And I did. In fact, I was teaching in a herbal school at the time. I taught my class. I came home at 10 o'clock at night, took a shower. My husband and I traveled 7 hours to do his funeral. And at his funeral, his wife had a Bible Belt minister who basically was not happy with the fact that a gentleman had committed suicide. And I think there's forgiveness for anything if we've done anything wrong. And I honestly thought, that for him, he was such a shining being that there was no question. I saw him all the way down. He spoke to me in the car and gave me information about friends that I knew nothing about. When I arrived at the scene, the friends came to me and said they knew he was going to commit suicide. They knew they couldn't stop him. And he said to them, ask Janet when she comes because I will appear to her and she will tell you. And of course I did. But at the grave site, it was just so overwhelming for me that I walked from the site and I said to him, just show me, what does it feel like? Passing, what does it feel like? And the lightning shot through me. I almost fell over. And all of the cicada made such a tremendous noise. And at the time I was working with Eugene Taylor, who is a William James scholar at Harvard University. And I explained the experience, and he said to me, don't you realize what that was? He gave you the Kundalini rising. And at the time, I purchase the books, I don't read them. And I don't read them for a very good reason. I have a lot of experiences. And I feel if I read the book first and have the experience, I'm not going to trust it. My science in me is going to say, you relived what you just read.
Mm.
So I will only read things after I've experienced them.
I'm
And
the same.
I
Yeah.
had not read anything about it, but I feel that since I have the connection with the snakes, and believe me, when a snake is on my property, somebody should photograph it because the snake will move itself up and listen to me and move another direction if I'm doing something that I don't want the snake to be frightened. So, but I think it represents, first of all consciousness is connected. Whether you're a snake, whether you're a little rodent outside, whether you're a blade of grass, we all come from the same consciousness. And if we understand that, we respect one another. We love one another because I and thou are one. I mean, it's not a question. So, Kundalini rising, it's the divine feminine, not feminine as a woman, feminine as a creative spirit, feminine as that doorway that helps us to see the dream reality. And that dream reality, together with waking reality, makes us whole. Most people don't realize they're walking around not fully whole. They don't know who they are.
I don't. So when it comes to your work with people, how do you work with your clients and your students?
It depends on who they are. I'm the biggest chameleon. I show up. Sometimes I need my lab coat, and I need to be Professor or Dr. Piedilato, and I need to present things in a very scientific manner. So if someone comes to me and they don't understand shamanism and they don't have very much of a spiritual background, let's say, I can do hypnosis on them, and yet the hypnosis is bringing them into that shamanic state. It's an altered state of consciousness. I can bring them into what's called a waking dream or a shamanic journey or past life regression, and we see things. I made drum. I have my beautiful drum. I have my rattles that I use, and I chant. In the teaching, I bring each individual to try to understand what their own dream reality is. In the beginning, I will try to lead the vision so that I know individuals get to that place, and eventually, with just the sound of a rattle or a drum, they alter consciousness. We know if we bring someone into a laboratory and 10 to 12 minutes of rattling or drumming, they will start forming mental imagery. And I always say to someone, the images come to instruct, to teach, to comfort, and to guide. And allow those images to rise and then see what the manifest, and we move down to the latent. So I work with grieving people, obviously. I work with those that are looking for individuation. They want to learn more about who they are. They're on a path. I have an individual who's coming now because she's tried everything else and she would like to alter her consciousness and see things. So it depends on who's coming. I also work with individuals with stage 4 cancers, so that I certainly do know how to put together a protocol that will help them to carry what they have to carry during their therapies, and we can usually minimize the side effects. I wish I said I had a great rainbow to give them at the end, but what the rainbow is they're not afraid. They're able to move through, and since I've understood and spent many years in cancer hospitals, I know how to guide them so they can be strong enough and courageous enough to go through what they have to go through, knowing that they're just carrying something in the transient lifetime, and that when they do move ahead, they're not afraid. And that to me is the gift of saying, okay, I know what I have to carry. I'm going to carry it, and I'm going to get there. So it depends on who comes to me.
And do you work online and internationally as well?
I work online, I work internationally. I use everything through Zoom right now, or through FaceTime, or some of the apps that work. There's nothing in person anymore, but it's both the teaching and the private therapies, which usually are about an hour. Classes are about an hour and a half.
Oh, thank you, Janet. That's amazing. And
You're
what's your website, my love? How can people find you?
Okay, they can find me on janetpiedilato.net. They can find me on dreamphd.com.
Oh my God, I love that.
Dream,
dreamphd.com.
dreamphd.com. Well, my last name is a little difficult for people to spell. So janetpiedilato, .net and .com, both of them are mine. I also have alchemicalfeast.com, but that's kind of my take on food and eating and making everything that we take into ourselves, whether it's just what we see, hear, feel, or actually take in the mouth, something sacred, connecting it with memory, connecting it with the ancestors. That's what Alchemical Feast is about. But you'll find me in every one of those places.
Amazing. And with
Andrea.
um with the cards, where can people buy them? Are they on Amazon and
They're on Amazon all over the world, and they're in several different languages. So you can check that out as well. But it's Amazon.com in the States, UK, of course, over in Europe. And I think the French version is due to come out, and a Hungarian version. So we have lots of action on that, and people are really enjoying it. And I do a 2 card reading, mystical dream tarot reading, every Sunday, and that's on my Facebook page, which is Janet Piedilato. So they can tune in for that and get the forecast for the week with the 2 card reading from the Mystical Dream Tarot. And I've got on Tuesday and Friday. Tuesday, I do an ancestral healing through the shamanic dream, and that's at 6 o'clock Eastern Time in the United States. And then 6 o'clock on Eastern Time, Friday nights, I do dream chats. And I have people tuning in from all over the world for that. So there's always a way to connect with me.
Oh, I need to work out the GMT so I can tune into you, honey. I'll have to tune in. And in terms of your publishing work, have you brought out anything other than the cards so far? I know that you've got.
I have Pieta's Tales, which the secret is it came out as a children's story, but it really is autobiographical. It's the story of a little girl who does go in a closet, and she has all sorts of visions. So it was put out a couple of years ago. So Pietis Tales is there. The iconography of transcendence, which was kind of the doctoral thesis on the 600 pages of my dreams, that can be found online. And I'm in several different books. So if you Google me, I've been a guest in many. I'm doing a new book, which is The Dream Gate, but that won't be out for another year from now. So, and I'm working on some ancestral work. So hopefully it will all come out in time.
Just before we finish up, have you got any final words that you would like to say to our viewers or a parting message?
Yes, I'd like to say to each one of them to just lift their hearts up to the light, because no matter what sorrows, no matter what problems, what losses that you've had, in the end, it's all going to be all right. Everything that happens here is transient, and I'm the perfect example of that. You will make it through the storm. I had a visit by a woman that I'm not even sure I ever met in physical reality. Her name was Magda, and she lived in Copenhagen. And she gave a message for everyone in my group on a Friday night. And it was, when the ship is at sea in a storm and the seagulls appear, safe harbor is ahead. And she was telling them the safe harbor is ahead for each and every one of us in whatever storm we go through. So I leave you with Magda's words, who's someone who lived a half a century ago.
Oh, thank you so much, lovely. That was absolutely beautiful. And that I don't think we need to say anything else, really. That was just divine. Janet, it's been so wonderful speaking to you again and connecting with you, lovely. And
Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure to be here.
such a pleasure. And just to all our viewers who've tuned in, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting the Alexandra Wenman show. Please do comment below if you'd like to. There'll be information on how to connect to Janet below, and I'll keep all the links in the comments below. And we hope you've enjoyed this gorgeous chat today, and keep dreaming. Thank you.
Well, many blessings. Be well.